Can I ask you about the 1953 speech? Can you just watch it real quick? This particular speech is about in 1953 at the end of the Korean War, saying China will not surrender. Well, let's actually just listen to it. The speech reads, "As to how long this war will last, we're not the ones who can decide. It used to depend on President Truman. It will depend on President Eisenhower or whoever will become the next U.S. president. It's up to them. But no matter how long this war is going to last, we will never yield." We'll fight until we completely triumph. Yeah, so this is the version of Mao that you're speaking to that is still celebrated today. And from the Chinese perspective, I guess they could tell the story about that particular proxy war that they triumphed. Oh, what do you think about that speech, about these performances? I don't know how much you've listened to Mao speeches.
Well, he had a really difficult accent to make sense of, and people native speakers of Chinese can have trouble with his speech. That one was less hard to follow than some of them.
What explains the accent?
Well, he's just from Hunan, and he had a heavy accent, and this is another complicated side of Mao. He was both anti-intellectual and very intellectual. He liked to write poetry and to fashion himself as that, but he also liked to be seen as incredibly earthy and critical of the of intellectuals. And if he had an animus toward, wanting to, even though he was intellectually had that anti-intellectualism. But no, I think what's interesting about that speech in part is how and even the depiction of the Korean War as being the war against America and resist America and support Korea, I think it fit with his idea that it wasn't just about China. It wasn't about China working in self-interest, but siding with the underdog countries against the hegemonic ones. And that was another part of Mao's desire to see China as representing the kind of a third world and a sort of the countries that had felt the brunt of imperialism, of Western imperialism and Japanese imperialism, and trying to find one or another country's imperialism to focus on. And at that point, he was focusing on America, which is something that can have particular resonances now. Mao could alternate. At certain points, he thought there should be an alliance with, or he said that China should be able to work with Japan because, he said it at one point. He said, well, without Japanese imperialism, the Communist Party wouldn't have risen because we wouldn't have had this ability to unite the people. We have seen in the post-Mao period some leaders playing on sort of anti-Japanese sentiment because of the history of Japanese aggression, or there can be anti-American sentiment because of the history of American roles in imperialism, or it can be played in a different way. The United States certainly tried that. The United States didn't have formal colonies in Asia the way that Britain and France did, and tried to present itself differently. So these things are also kind of in flux. And now we're in this very unusual influx period. At the beginning of the imposition of tariffs, there were leaders of China, Japan, and South Korea all together in photo ops, which was not something that, being on the same side. So I think this is also just a kind of broader lesson to not assume that configurations will always stay.